I'd like to call the Market Architectural Review Board meeting for Wednesday, July 16th, 2025 to order. Roll call, please.
Right. Lorson, Capicella,
Here.
Barban,
Here.
Chuck Mason,
Here.
Joanna Mason. Here.
All right, please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, it is July, so first point of business is we need to appoint a chair and vice chair to the Architectural Review Board. Do I have any nominations for chair for the ARB?
I would like to nominate Ken as chair of the ARB.
Any seconds?
I second that.
Can we nominate people that aren't here? Okay.
And we have full understanding that he is. Gonna do that, so.
Okay.
It's not like we're not. He's not here.
Any other nominations? If no other nominations, is there a motion to appoint Ken Larson as chair?
I motion to appoint Ken Larson as chair.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, Ken Larson will be chair again for one more year. Do we have nominations for vice chair?
I'd like to nominate Dave to be vice chair.
Any seconds?
I second that motion.
Any other nominations?
Can I nominate myself for the vice chair? I'll do that.
All right.
I can hand it over to you tonight.
Yeah.
Actually, can I second the nomination? I second that nomination. And I mean, with your background, it makes sense to me. So, any other nominations? So how do we work this one now? There's an even number of us.
Do a roll call vote for, I was going to say, if you're in support of the vice chair position going to Ben, then you could ask that your nomination be withdrawn, and then you can make a motion and vote on the nomination of Ben to be.
Okay. So I would like to nominate or make the motion to withdraw my nomination. I
Okay.
appreciate the nomination, but I would like to withdraw my name from it
Okay.
and go into support of Ben for the vice chair's position.
Okay. And then is there a motion to vote Ben in as vice chair?
I'd like to motion to vote Ben as in vice chair.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Congratulations.
You can agree to stay there tonight, or if you want to switch, you can. It's up to you. You can continue.
Whatever you want to do.
Or
It doesn't, I'm completely good with switching. I mean, it's my only first time doing this, so. It doesn't matter to me, whatever.
Whatever you were comfortable with.
We are at citizens time.
Yep.
You're up to bat.
All right. We now open it up to citizen time. So we open the floor for public comment. Seeing that there's none, is there any emails or anything else otherwise? Okay. All right, then moving on to minute approval. Yeah, I don't think we.
The late ARB meeting last month, and then I was on vacation previous week. I'll present this at the office meeting.
Okay. All right. So next item, agenda item is for ZP 2025-0706 at 14600 Washington Street, Suite 155, sign installation for Atelier Performing Arts. Thomas, you want to tee us up?
Yes, good evening, board. This one is a pretty straightforward application. A new tenant applied to operate within the property 14600 Washington Street. They're in the rear of the property. With that being said, there is some visibility from public right of way that they will operate from. It's Suite 155 in particular, so it's on the east side of the QBE building. They wish to install signage to reflect their brand. Colors are light brown with gray branding, which you will also see on packet page 11, just as a mock-up of what will be up there. The dimensions are going to be 12 square feet, which is the limit of what's allowable for wall signage in this district per the zoning ordinance. The materials for the signage are going to be aluminum. They also, in the same vein, applied for a spot on the multi-tenant signs that already exist. My goal with that was, if it's already approved by the landlord and other tenants have gone through that, the review is going to focus on that particular wall signage in front of the building. So for my review, it meets all zoning ordinance requirements. If the board is comfortable with the arrangement and the design in general, with the branding, then my recommendation is for approval of this permit application with a draft motion on packet page 5.
Anybody have items that they want to discuss regarding the application?
Negative.
And this is 100% in accordance with guidelines. I just don't want us to run into a situation like you do with the Zandras where they have to reduce the signage at a later date.
Dimensions and material are all within the zoning ordinance requirements.
Okay.
I think the one thing I did, just, for full disclosure, I drove by this and the sign right by the door, it's very hard to see from Washington Street. So I don't think like that's really in public right away, or it's not readily visible compared to the monument sign. And I think the dimensions for the actual sign in the mock-up are a little bit off, or at least in terms of like the scaling, because it should be bigger in the scaling. But again, if it meets the ordinance, I see no issue with it.
They did resend me a scaled, they
Okay.
rescaled it and resent it to me because initially the application was for 14 square feet. So I told them 12 is your max for your area of the sign. So they did rescale it. So maybe there are some scaling issues there. I can also ask again for another mock-up from them.
I
on
mean,
that.
I think, it gets it close to the intent, right? And they meet the ordinance. So I have no other comments there.
So go ahead, you have the motion.
You're still good? Everybody?
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
I was just looking at the scale.
I move the board approve ZP number 2025-0706, wall signage installation at 14600 Washington Street, Suite 155.
I second.
Do I need to do roll call or all in favor? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. Motion is approved. Next agenda on our item is ZP 2025-0703 at 14841 Washington Street, demolition COA application. Thomas, can you tee us up for this one?
Yes. So this is an application for certificate of appropriateness for demolition of the structure that sits on 14841 Washington Street. I did make an error at the very end of the staff report. I kept some language from a previous application and copying over this. So what we're looking at right now is demolition of the main structure, no other accessory structures. So right now the focus is just on that particular property. The applicant has provided to us, and just for some context as well, I'll give my staff report right now into the general guidelines that I followed as I gave this report, and then I'll turn the time over as well to our zoning administrator, town manager, Emily Karazi, for any additional information that she'd like to provide, especially considering we don't have the applicant with us right now. This property, it's listed as historic per the zoning ordinance. It's listed as historic per the comprehensive plan, which I provided an attachment for the board tonight in this staff report. Additionally, the nickname for it in the comprehensive plan is the Watts House. It is also known as the former Rector House, previous to it being named the Watts House. It currently is as Town Hall in part of our promotional messaging for the town and for tourism. We do list that because it's a historic structure. It's part of a walking tour, part of a brochure system that we have for the residents and visitors alike to walk the town. So generally speaking, it is a well-known building if you're looking at it the right way per ordinance and also per public messaging. I'll get into now the demolition guidelines with my comments in particular found on packet page 22 for the board's consideration. Once again, like every other demolition application that's brought before the board, and just for context too, let me give you the packet page that the actual view of the structure from Washington Street is on. On packet page 27, as I give this description, you'll have a view of the structure from Washington Street. But general demolition criteria per section 58-16 of the zoning ordinance, we have the review criteria. So the first is how the demolition or removal of a historic resource from the property on which it is located will impact the historic integrity of the site and any remaining on-site historic resources on the same property. With the submitted materials that were given to me, there was mention that the structure was not historic per Haymarket's code and everything. As I stated earlier in the staff report, and as I referenced with the code, per Prince William County records, it was built in 1901. The ordinance states anything built before 1950 is considered historic. Per section 58-16.3. As I said before, and as I attached in the staff report, it is part of the Haymarket Comprehensive Plan as a list of historic contributing structures. So as a previous board member said before, we've checked 2 of the boxes there for historic significance in the town. And this was, the comprehensive plan designation was from a 1996 Virginia DHR survey as well. So with that in mind, to answer the main point of that question is, it is considered historic per our ordinance. Removal of the structure is removing a historic structure from the town. Item B, how the loss of the resource will impact the integrity of any adjacent historic property. In my report, I took this literally. On technicality, it's not adjacent to any historic property per the zoning ordinance. The structure just to the west of it, it misses that mark by a few years, so it's very close, but per ordinance requirements, it is not adjacent to anything that is considered historic. With that being said, moving into item C, if it has an impact, or if losing the historic resource will have an impact on the overall integrity to any historic district and that the resource is located in. It is on a section of Washington Street that has a lot of historic properties near it. So it would be compromising the scale of that area of Washington Street with other properties of similar build to it. Additionally, removal of that resource is one move closer to reducing the size of our cluster of historic buildings. With that in mind, though, it is not near our 2 state and national register historic sites that we've discussed on the board before. So that is just some context for that, this particular site. But the main summary is the existing scale on the street would be disrupted with the demolition of this property, and we'd lose some historic significance of this corridor within Washington Street. Going into item D, the ability of the historic resource to be adaptively reused as part of a new on-site development, which would not adversely impact the historic resource's ability to convey its historic significance through its integrity of location, setting, feeling, association, design, materials, and workmanship. I'd like to turn to the staff or the structural report, excuse me, that starts on packet page 30. In summary, a lot of the damage that is talked about is damage over time, damage that was caused by lack of use of the structure and not necessarily intentional damage to the property. So it's a lot of overdue maintenance of the property. With that, the structural report argues that the structure is in need of demolition because of that. The applicant's goal as well is to install or build another building on that site as well. So there is no current discussion about what kind of adaptive reuse can be done for this building at this time based on the wishes of the applicant. So once again, similar to point C, the historic significance of this corridor on Washington Street, it would be affected negatively without adaptive reuse of this particular structure. The final item, whether any monies or assistance for preservation of the historical resource could be made available for the property owner within 180 days of the owner's request. Currently, still no grant funding options for those kinds of requests that will be given to us or the applicant. In summary of what we talked about, based on the qualitative side of our town's use of this structure is to promote the historic significance of Haymarket, and as well as my assessment of the staff report, or excuse me, of the structural report of the property and the zoning ordinance and comprehensive plan recommendations, there is a negative impact on the historic, there's negative impact on Washington Street and the preservation of a historic resource within that part of Washington Street if the structure is demolished. And my recommendation is that we do a site visit like with any other demolition COA application, just to, so we can really see the structural issues that are present on site, and so we can also have a further discussion with the applicant. At this time, I'd turn the time over to Emily for any other comments, and then since it's just us reporting this right now, any other questions you'd want us to research or want the applicant to research, you can field to us.
I think my biggest comment is, since the applicant's not here tonight to champion this, and this is a larger application, one of great magnitude that impacts our town, I don't want that burden of champion this project to fall on staff. That needs to be on the applicant and the person who is actively looking to change this property and put something new in. They need to be the ones that, you know, are answering the questions of the board. We are happy to take any questions you may have, and we will do our best to answer them. Certainly anything in Thomas's staff report, we will go through and we can have that discussion tonight. But I think it is of the utmost importance that we as a town set an example that the applicants do need to be present, especially for an application of this magnitude. So please feel free, ask us questions or give us some feedback that we can turn over to the applicant. Or if you collectively as a board decide that this needs to be tabled until they can be in attendance, then we will respect that decision and get in touch with them. And last thing, I don't even necessarily think we can per se schedule a site visit because we don't know, they are not current owners, they are the applicant, so they still had to have owner signature on this. So we don't know accessibility of the site. We can set a proposed date to give them, but I can't confidently agree to a site visit date tonight either.
Okay.
So you're saying we could, because before we do demolition, I think it would be nice to ask for a site visit to see with our own eyes. So I think,
Yes.
I think that's a request I would like, is for us to take a
Absolutely.
little field trip down the street and see it.
And we typically, you guys typically schedule those for the next meeting. What I'm just saying is, since they're not here tonight to say.
That's fine.
We can tell them that date, but maybe we give them a backup date as another option.
That's fine. I just have concerns with demolishing a place just because it's old.
Yes.
You know, I mean, a lot of the things they talk about in the structural conditions, that's going to be indicative of a 125-year-old house. A lot of the things they're talking about, this interior systems and general conditions, again, 120, they were talking about window mounted AC units.
Right.
125 years ago, I don't think there was indoor plumbing in the house probably. So I guarantee AC isn't in there. And they talk about things that aren't to code, but they're not saying it's not operational. It's that those are my concerns.
And how, we've had this discussion before with even our park building, where there's a lot of different code opportunities that if you have an older structure of this nature, the building official is not expecting you to bring it up to 2025 code. They are expecting you to fall into those historic code references where you can bring it up to a certain standard and make it functional, accessible, and safe. So I think that's also a conversation we have to have with the applicant as well.
Are we within our rights to ask them? You know, obviously they're going into this looking at a price to purchase the property with the structure on it. And they're talking about, you know, doing demolition and raising it and then putting something new in place. Are we within our rights to say, can you also get because they're going to get pricing for all of that. But are we within our rights to go back and say, if you needed to renovate the current space in there and bring it up to your needs, what would that cost as well?
Correct me if I'm wrong. I mean, we've kind of had this discussion before because one of the criterias of the guidelines is to provide an alternative or have you evaluated and the alternative to demolition? And I think that was one of your bullet points and that really doesn't seem to be addressed.
And again, I wish they were
Sure.
here tonight. I've had several, face-to-face meetings with them where the conversation has changed from a demolition to saving the structure back to a demolition. So I think those are great questions that you should be asking of the applicant. And you're well within your rights to ask those questions as the board. At the end of the day, you guys are the ones protecting our historic town by vote. So those are the questions you need to ask. They need to have that information to answer and talk through what was that conversation on site with the person who did the structural evaluation, their plan going forward. What is that plan look like in terms of can they adaptively reuse the building or not? Or is the financial burden, outweigh that? So.
I think the other question I have too is, and it being one of the newer members on the board, is what is the town's strategic plan for? We're going to continue to run into this, and to be candid, there are buildings that we know that we would like to see renovated and changed along Washington Street. So when we get to a place like this where we have somebody that's potentially looking to purchase the property, what is? I understand the spirit of preserving it for historic use, but are we saying that we then, at that case, we want it to stay residential? So that it gives a framework for customers that are looking to purchase a place to say, hey, you know what, I can renovate this to be a residential property. I probably can't, or maybe an office space, but I probably can't do much. I mean, more if they're talking about doing like a dance studio, that the property as is not going to be a dance studio.
So if I may,
Yes, please.
I think this is a great opportunity. I'm going to print this document for all of you to take home with you, but you brought up a great point is what is the town's strategic plan? Since the applicant's not here tonight, I'm going to take a moment to explain what's in our strategic plan regarding preserving Haymarket history. So this is item number 5 in our strategic plan. We just adopted this back in December. So 5.1, update the contributing resources list to encompass all historic structures and previous structures. 5.2, develop a plan of recognition of historical sites through walking program and signage program. 5.3, document and archive historical assets. 5.4, develop a historic preservation program and a museum plan. 5.5, investigate the possibility of providing grant funding for local preservation efforts. So that's what council collectively agreed on. And I think that encompasses a lot of what the ARB wants to accomplish, what we want to save. Furthermore, that property is zoned transitional commercial and it was rezoned in 2018. So that allows for a blending of residential and commercial right in that area in the front of Green Hill Crossing, kind of as you're coming into town. It allows for minimal commercial style uses. And so, for example, this applicant wants to do a fine arts studio, essentially. They want to have 2 or 3, that there is a photography studio, there is a, what would you say, wedding guest designer? Someone who, makes high-end gowns and special occasion dresses. And then they also want to partner to have, I believe it's a small coffee shop or gelato. So they want a smaller impact commercial use. It's not going to be all the time. It's going to be more of appointment only. But the zoning ordinance kind of dictates already that this is a transitional commercial. And we have not entertained any changes further to that, nor have we had anybody come in wanting to apply for a rezoning of this.
So then by definition, when you say transitional commercial, that it's the town's intent to keep the basically the facade of the property the same with the okay, basically to make some internal modifications for office space use. Is that basically what you're saying?
So I think, no, I don't think that there is any set that like the structure or the footprint even has to stay the same. There's an openness to additional structures on site. There's an openness to redesigning the site. I think it comes up to the ARB to help influence that decision. So things that the ARB should consider is if there's a preservation of the building. Similarly, the Hidden Jewel structure. They had the original portion is the original L shape that Kathy's Hair Design and the Hidden Jewels portion sits in. And then they approved an addition to the structure which mirrors it. But
Okay.
you should be able to, a lot of historic preservation is about recognizing the historic and original structure and complementing it.
Okay.
And so that can be a decision that ARB makes of, we would like to see history preserved here, our local history on site. Therefore, we would like to see an addition. If you need to expand, we'd like to see an addition that complements it without losing the resource.
And sometimes that entails kind of hiding that addition behind the house or making the mass and scale of it so it doesn't overshadow the original structure.
That's what I was kind of
Yes.
thinking about,
Yeah.
like getting
Right.
the pricing for renovating the structure and maybe adding on to the back of it to accommodate these things.
Because I don't even know if the intended use that you described, Emily, like if you have a gelato place, a dance studio, and then like the photography, like some of that stuff. I don't know if the building itself currently has the capacity to hold all that.
It does not. They definitely would not be able to do all of the uses in the one structure. I'm not sure, just a real quick
And
reference.
is that from a zoning standpoint that they couldn't have all those things in there?
Just from a square footage
Okay,
standpoint,
okay, just
just
okay.
the size of the structure. When we were meeting and they were talking about what size square footage they needed for each of those small uses, it's more based on that.
Okay.
Zoning wise, they are able to accommodate the uses they want to do, and parking is going to be the biggest thing, but they are able to with the space they have there. They'll have to do some site plan engineering on it, but parking will be there.
So can we take that into account? I mean, ultimately, at the end of the day, I think we do need to table this until they can come in and champion it.
Agreed.
But I think part of that is getting more details on what their plans are, because right now their plans are demolition and nothing else.
Absolutely. So you guys are owed additional context of, what is the next step? So you do not want to approve a demolition and then it sit neglected and be raw land, because that's not good for anybody. When I say not good for anybody, I'm also thinking stormwater management, runoff, those items. So yes, absolutely. They need to come in, talk through the plan. The ARB is designated to discuss the general design layout. And so you can talk to the general placement on the site, the general flow of the site. But when it comes to the actual civil engineering and the site plan and the design of the parking lot, that's at the planning commission level. But you guys have a voice there too. You can task your planning commission liaison to take that concern to planning commission and say, when this plan comes in, we need to take into account the layout of the site. Because one of the things I will tell you as staff, we are working on is the access to and from Washington Street, and if there's other access points. So, that's going to be a big general design layout conversation.
I have an idea for it, but I don't think this is the right place for it.
I do understand tabling this until we have the client here to champion it. I just want to take the opportunity, especially given I can't speak for me and my wife. We're definitely newer members to the ARB. A little bit of edification and education for ourselves, so that we are as prepared as we can be to speak confidently, intelligently when they do come. And so I just want to make sure that I understand what you were saying. So as far as the structure is concerned right now, if we agreed that if we didn't want to demolish it and we would agree to some modifications, but not demolishing it. what are the boundaries left and right in regards to that? Meaning, can they completely wipe the face of it as long as we agree to it, or is it? And this may be more of a question for you, Ben, is like where are the boundaries in regards to keeping the essence of a historical building, and also then meeting the needs of, despite modification as far as adding additions, the structure itself, what can be allowed to be done and what can't, where does it stop? I guess was one of my.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of, that I would think would be at our discretion. I think, definitely if we're wanting to kind of preserve the main viewpoints or vantage points from Washington Street, I think particularly, directly on Washington Street, that front area with the porch, and then maybe even that little bump out there on the side. I'm not sure, there does seem to be some sort of structure back there, so I'm not sure if there's another outbuilding or an extension on the back.
I drive by there every day. I think there's only the one external building there.
Yes,
Okay.
so there's the main structure. I don't know what page the photo is on your packet, but there's the main structure that sits essentially on the, as you look at it, the rightmost property line. And then there's a second accessory structure in, as you look at it, the back left corner, and that is a detached garage structure. To my knowledge, I will have to confirm with the applicant, to my knowledge, there's a small apartment living space there. So you have the two structures, and then you have some driveway paved surfaces.
But look, it looks like there might be like a one-story
Mhm.
addition out the back.
Yeah, I'm looking
Yes.
at, I'm looking at an
There's-
overhead of
there's
it right here. And it actually
Yeah.
extends off pretty far behind it.
Is there an extension on it?
Because we
What-
only have that front elevation, so it's hard to get all
Right,
the.
you can see
I
the
don't
external
think-
structure
I
there.
don't
Yeah.
You
think.
can see the building shape
there-
there.
Yeah, and I remember passing by it,
Yeah.
and seeing that.
Let me
in
see
the
the
back.
touchdown.
I know it's there.
For some reason, I do not think that there is I believe that's the entirety of the house, and it's a two-story. It's
It
two-story.
looks to be the entirety, by the, what I'm looking at here in this overhead, the roof line actually kind of does make it out to be the full 2 stories. But I think there's a porch off the back side of it. And I think that's why it looks like there's a different kind of roof structure there.
Let me see if I have some photos on file of it.
Yeah, I could see.
Does everybody know the local history of it while we're looking this up?
I'm sorry?
You wanna
Everybody know the local history of the structure?
No.
I'd love to know more about it.
Yeah. So you can join me on Friday at 6 p.m. for our walking tour, and I'll tell you. But no, on page 17 of our historic walking guide, it is the former Rector house. That is the Rector family who resided there originally, and they were the blacksmiths and the undertakers of the town. And so it was quite common knowledge at the time that they stored the hearse there, the hearse carriage on site. And as they needed to go out and do undertaking duties, they would bring the horses from across the street and hook everything up, and they would go out and do undertaking services. So, yep, they were the town blacksmiths and undertakers.
And I don't want to spend too much time on this because I know, and maybe this is something we could do offline, but I just want to, the last question I have then is there any guidelines in our comprehensive guidelines that say, like, for example, a historical structure like this, you could take it down to the studs, but no further? At what point does the structure stop being an actual historic structure because you remove all the historic stuff out of it, and just be historic by look only? I guess that's what I would say, guidelines left and right. Are there any set in stone guidelines as to how far you can take all the old stuff out of the building? Do you understand my question?
I've seen
Yes,
that
so
before.
locally, we do not have that answer for you.
Okay.
If you were doing something that was state or nationally recognized, you would. This is just a visual from street
Yeah.
view
Yeah.
of the addition there in the back.
Okay.
But a portion of the original structure, sorry, it goes to right in this area, kind of right where that light pole is.
Mhm.
Is right in that area. But I do not know the year that the addition would have been added. Don't know that yet.
And to caveat that question, then, is that something that we want to add to our comprehensive plan for future? I mean, we're just going to continue to run into the situation. Let's say it's the Baptist church, right? If somebody wanted to demolish it and rebuild it in its likeness, are we okay with that? So anyways, that could be something we can talk about later.
And
And I think, sorry, real quick, I was gonna say, I think when Ken comes back, and since he's sitting as your council liaison, but he's also had some years of experience on the board, you guys should revisit that conversation, possibly in the guidelines conversation you're gonna have. And if that's a desire of the board, to put some stipulation in of,
Right.
if we're asking them to preserve the history of the structure, but we need to allow them to rehab it,
Mhm.
what levels are there? Because we also have to remember, if we ask them to, not necessarily this building, but if everybody remembers Fred's Garage across
Yeah.
the street,
Right.
right? We originally had wanted to talk about saving the front facade of that building, but what we saw the day of demolition is that they pulled off the back and the front just
Collapse.
flopped down. So we also have to be understanding that if we require them to make the utmost effort to preserve it, what happens when it can't be?
I also think this will help us with making contributions to the council or suggestions to the
Mhm.
council, because like even the park building that we demolished, I know, and from our perspective, we wanted to keep some of the fireplace and stuff like that were architectural, parts of the original structure. I think if we've had that conversation at least and put some of that stuff in stone, we could, it gives us a little more teeth to be able to say, hey, per guidelines that everybody has agreed to, you can't demolish everything just because it has a budget constraint.
And I hope, as a good example, this allows me to give a little feedback at this time, but as a good example, we are putting out that design of the park at RFP. We are putting out that it is going to be the same footprint of the park building. We saved all that stone. And so I'm hoping the town can set that example for the community, that we saved the stone. We're rebuilding a open air pavilion in the exact same footprint of the structure. We're going to do concrete work to celebrate that and show the rooms and the layout of the house. So we're trying to think in a creative manner to celebrate the history of it. And I hope that some of these applications and the board can put that into writing of, let's encourage, if we can't save it all, let's put it out there to pay homage to it.
And no casting no shade on that.
Right, yeah.
But I do think that where that was a little more benign of a conversation, because it teetered on the edge of like what we consider historic, from a perspective of us having an affinity to it. I think having these conversations and having some stipulations set in stone when it gets to something that everybody's like a little bit more personal about, that may be coming up in the future, it will help us guide some of that conversation and keep some of the heated debate going.
And I liked your comment in reference to the fact that, we do have some of these smaller, older structures that we do expect people to come in and buy up and want to modify, but we're not necessarily thinking about the Baptist church, who
Right.
has played a long role history
Exactly.
here, so we do need to think about those structures as well if they were to ever change hands.
Copy that. Okay, well, good. I
So-
just dropped the seat.
A good guideline discussion.
Yeah.
Well, and I kind of jumping in here too. I mean, from a state level and even from a national level, sometimes there's stipulations on, the exterior of a structure. Sometimes it's the interior of the structure, and you can't touch the interior. I think with this one, we can kind of set what that looks like, and yeah, there are ways to kind of keep the facade. You peel back the interior, and you kind of use that old facade or that old skin as the new way. And I think, yes, it can be done, and yes, it can be done wrong. And if it's not stabilized, then you do have the collapse, right? I mean, I wasn't here to witness that, and I'm not sure what the backup was, but as soon as you start taking a backup down of a stone wall, like front veneer stone wall, yeah, it's gonna peel off.
Right.
And maybe we can use this structure as a template for going for, to advise, help inform our comprehensive plan. Because like if we start peeling back the structure and we actually see that hidden behind a wall was one of the kilns, the original kiln, we're probably gonna want to keep that, and just putting ourselves in the position to not be able to, the client not to be able to say, well, based off of your guidelines, it doesn't matter. As long as I rebuild it in the same spirit, it should be okay. And that's just something for us.
Yeah. No, and I appreciate, the desire to kind of defer this till the applicant is actually here. I think that's a fantastic idea. I think there's definitely some questions that still kind of remain for all of us as to, the other options to consider. And, even to your point about, some of the things that they're pointing out about, the internal systems that obviously wouldn't have been there originally. And so I think to kind of hang your hat on that for a justification for demolition, it seems a little short-sighted and, we kind of call this everyone has kind of called this a structures report, but yet it's called an architectural assessment report. And this is an architecture firm, and they're weighing in on the structure. They're talking about the structural integrity and life safety. I think they need to have a structural engineer weigh in on it if it really is in bad condition, because I feel like a lot of these items that they're bringing up all are valid. They're maintenance items. There's water infiltration primarily at windows, at roof leaks, at chimneys, right? You're going to see that, but the bones of the house could potentially be good. And it talks of significant settlement and evidence of cracked masonry, and there's no photos, right? Where's the justification for that?
But even if the bones weren't good, isn't that where, as long as it's feasible, where the town would step in and say, hey, we will pony up on a grant or whatever to fix up to the bones portion of the structure to get it up to at least where it's safe, just to maintain the historic.
I mean, ultimately, I think, obviously we need to table it, but at the same time, I think we want them to understand that we want to work with them
Right.
to come to an equitable solution for the space.
And I just don't want to have this discussion in front of them either. I want us to have already understood at least where we stand.
So that's a valid question. Can we have a closed door session afterwards? Is that something we're allowed to do? I know the council does, but are we allowed to as a board?
I would get with the
Chair and the vice chair of the board to determine what the exact conversation is, and then I would be able to evaluate
Okay.
if it would warrant a closed session. In my time here, we have never done a closed session with the ARB, so I don't know that answer, but I would have to get with the chair and the vice chair.
All right, sorry.
No, it's good conversation.
So why don't we, do you want them to make a motion to defer? Yes, if you will, move to defer application ZP 2025-0703 for 14841 Washington Street demolition COA application to your next meeting on August 20th.
Draft motion provided on page 24.
You can do that deferral and say so moved if you want to.
Oh, just based off of what you just said.
Yeah, just say so moved.
So moved.
Okay, and then a second,
Second.
and then all
All
in
in
favor.
favor? Aye.
Okay.
All right, there we go.
Awesome.
All right.
What's that on? Is that a way to do it?
Next item on the agenda, the ARB guidelines updates.
Yes, I'll be brief on this update because Emily was here to represent and also assist with the last application we just discussed. I wanted to take this opportunity as well to rehash a timeline for the guidelines, especially considering there's been some turnover with the board. We've just reappointed a chair and vice chair. We've made some progress on some of the background information, such as the flow chart, those kinds of things, and we've discussed that at the board level. The goal of this, of course, is to get this across to the council. And so in discussion with Emily previous to this meeting tonight, we want to rehash some of what those timelines are going to look like with the board so that A, I'm accountable on my end to provide you with those updates, and B, you know what to expect and what kind of feedback you are prepared to give as well on your end as we have these discussions. So I'll turn the time over to Emily on this.
Yes, so this is one of our bigger initiatives that we've been working on for a long time. When I was town planner, we were working actively, just bandwidth was not there. So I think you guys have made some good improvements on it. I think that even just tonight's conversation, we have some areas that we can look into a little bit closer. I think this was good discussion that Thomas and I will follow up on probably end of this week to discuss. But I would like for the board to aim to provide a final draft for recommendation of approval November 19th to the town council. So that would give you guys a solid 3 working months. I'm counting that August, September, October to really start talking about the fine tuning of it. I'm going to be working with Thomas internally, and we would like, he can give you guys another draft update in August, but a final draft update from the staff perspective would be delivered in September. You guys would have a month to sit with it. October, give some feedback if you didn't have any at September's meeting. And then you guys would vote ideally on a clean final draft November 19th to forward to the town council to hold public hearings and work through the final approval process and adoption.
Copy.
Okay.
And I will say, I need to get with our clerk and deputy clerk to determine what the length of public hearing process time is for a document like this. It's been a little bit since we've done this style of a document on public hearings, so I'll have Thomas follow up with what that looks like. We would want we have, of course, our liaison, but any, board input at the council level is also ideal. And so there might be a opportunity that maybe not just the liaison, but other members from the board come to present and discuss the document with the town council.
Okay.
Are there any concerns on that timeline? Does that seem like a reasonable timeline for everybody?
So it sounds like just to kind of clarify, because you went in reverse and I'll kind of go forward in time. We'll get another update from Thomas in August.
Mhm.
We'll get the final draft from staff incorporating all previous edits in our September meeting.
Yes.
It will then be presented, I guess, what we have, what's going on in October, because I know you said in November is when we vote to send it to council.
So ideally, if you guys get the draft at your September meeting, if you don't have all of your comments ready for discussion that night in September,
Okay.
you can come back in October and discuss that.
Good to have a 1-month buffer.
Yeah, you have a 1-month buffer in there. I don't want to step on staff's toes here. I don't know if everybody's aware, but your October meeting date is the week of Haymarket Day. Is there any flexibility that we can push it out a week?
Forward or back or?
Out to the 22nd, if that is doable, or you guys look at your calendar, maybe you guys can coordinate with Thomas and Alex. But just thinking of if this is a big working document we're trying to get through, that is a heavy push week for staff.
Mhm.
So if we could move it one way or the other, that would be ideal. I know myself, mayor and vice mayor will all be returning from the VML conference that week as well. So it would just be a little harder to attend for the guideline discussion.
Doing it on the 8th might be better for me. I'm looking at my calendar the week prior.
Alexandra, is that when your conference is? But Kim could clerk it for you. Okay, and maybe you could switch planning commission or something. Okay.
Or could we do it on the 29th? I'm just throwing ideas out there. The
No, no,
22nd
no.
it does not work for me.
Ideally, the 8th is better. I'm trying to plan a additional council meeting that I'm tentatively holding the 29th. So I would need the space then. So ideally, the 8th would be better. Are you good with that? Is that acceptable?
No objections today.
We're good.
No?
Okay,
All right.
we'll coordinate that also with Ken and let him know. We'll start advertising that change, but thank you. That helps us out a lot. So yes, then you have your buffer month, and then November 19th is the date that ideally you put a bow on it and send it over to council.
Okay.
Council's schedule, just for everyone's awareness, is we would have possibly a work session the week of Thanksgiving that could possibly get canceled. So council would be seeing the document just briefly on December 1st. And they would be authorizing a public hearing that night and directing that for staff. And then that's where I would get the notice out, and our public hearing for the document would be in January based on our timeline that we have to meet per state code.
Okay.
Any questions about that process or timeline? Okay. As you guys have thoughts on the document, please, by all means, send Thomas, myself, or Alex any of the information or thoughts so that we can be including it proactively.
I'll send a follow-up email as well with that timeline that we just discussed.
Yeah, it'd be helpful. Thank you. So then I guess, I lost it here. The current, or the guidelines that are currently in our packet, are those the most up to date?
Yes.
Okay.
And one of the things I'll be working and discussing with Thomas is that strategic plan, those 5 initiatives, and ensuring that if there's anything we can put into the guidelines, we will. So again, I'll give you guys a copy of that document before you leave tonight.
Okay. Any other questions, comments, concerns? All right.
It's a doable timeline.
Yep. All right. Next item, old business. Thomas. Do you
Yes.
wanna take that?
I'll couple this with, it's kind of new business, but I'll couple it with old business. I talked before about previous, I guess, installations that need to be applied for retroactively. Those focuses were mostly on the Washington Street and Jefferson Street corridors, which we're currently enforcing. As of last Thursday, or was it Friday? It was Friday. As of last Friday, I did do a comprehensive zoning inspection of the entire town. So the focus was not just on the main corridors, but the goal now is to send the zoning enforcement that we need to regarding those public rights of way. And if anything falls within that net, then it gets brought to the ARB. So a lot of that's related to window signage, those kinds of things that I observed in my inspection. So I'll look to have those on the board's agenda as well. We're still waiting, moving to the next part of old business, for the Magnolia Crossing or Blight Drive townhomes that the elevations were previously approved for. Still waiting on a bond submission from them, meaning we're still waiting on a timeline for the demolition of the 3 single-family structures that the townhomes will be replacing. We're waiting on the final go-ahead from them so that we can then give them grading approval once that all goes through. So I'll give you a timeline on that. We followed up with them this week on what that looks like, so we can also give council an update on it. So once council gets that update, and we do, we will be sure to tell the board as well for old business, those next steps.
How about Lane Motors? That's one I was kind of wondering
That
about.
was another item we followed up on as well, because it's the same company that's piloting that. Still waiting to see what the title results are, if that transfer has happened yet.
Did you give them the information on what happened there?
A little bit. There was a bit, I may have told the board previously, but there was a title suit that Emily can go into
So-
detail on that.
I was wondering what was taking so long.
There's a bit of a delay, not because they've backed out of the project or anything. That is still fully going forward. There's a bit of a delay regarding the finalization of the estate, and things are in probate. And so there was a title suit, and there were 13, I believe, people that were identified that they had to do the proper notification and work through that. So that's what's going on right now.
With a structure of that age, it's not actually surprising.
Yeah. Yeah. So, but they are staying in touch and still active on it. So that is good news.
And they're having to wait on that before they can go to settlement.
Yes,
Okay.
unfortunately. Yeah. They're very anxious to get going and see things moving. So.
Other than that, that's all the old business that I have.
Is Lidl just not happening?
That's part of the zoning inspection that we did. So there's obvious grass zoning violations in terms of height that we
Yeah.
are enforcing. With that in mind, though, I mean, there was I'd have to double check, but at least late 2022, early 2023 signing of the site plan. So with that in mind, there's a 5-year window. We as a town want to ensure that if they're going to be building within that 5-year window, that it happens. So follow-up has been sent intermittently. The latest round of follow-up has been sent as well regarding zoning enforcement, as well as just checking in to see what the status of it is. If we receive, hopefully when we receive a status update, we'll notify the board. Because I know there were some alterations that they did initially want for their signage way back in fall 2022. So if that's still on the table, along with the project itself, I will let the board know.
All right, thank you. Sorry.
All right. Next item, new business, Thomas?
I believe I brought this up last month as well. We're still going through another round of comments for the Carter School site plan. So there's the Van Meter, Robinson Village Townhomes, Hunting Path Road, Washington Street. That's the best point of reference crossroads wise. But you have those 2 parcels of land in front of the townhomes that it was going to be a daycare center as well as some tenant retail on both parcels fronting Washington Street. We're still in discussion on what that grading layout looks like for the fronting of Washington Street, how it helps with, does it promote pedestrian access, those kinds of things. As we're having that discussion, we've encouraged them to talk to their architect as well, to come up with some sorts of plans for the footprint so that we can move forward with that. Once we get elevations for that site plan, once the footprint and other zoning items are accounted for, then we'll bring that to the ARB as well. This is more just a general announcement because this is a long time ago, but in about 2015, there was an approved site plan for the Haymarket Iceplex for expansion, those kinds of things. In order to increase their occupancy, they need to enclose one of the spaces that's just a concrete pad right now on site. They are currently applying to do that. We've confirmed with them that the increase in floor area has been accounted for with the previous site plan. So really, it's just a building department issue now. The elevations have been previously approved as well. But that's just something, new construction that's coming up that if you as the board were wondering what's happening there, that's what's happening. So I'm set to issue zoning approval for that now that we've clarified all the other outstanding items this week. And then they hope to build as soon as possible. So it should be happening within the next quarter, that expansion.
Okay.
And apart from that, that is all the new business that I have.
Planning Commission update.
I was not here for the last planning commission meeting, and Thomas, I have to defer to you on this.
No, definitely. Similar to the ARB, bylaws and code of ethics from the council level were discussed. And so any comments that the commission had for code of ethics, it's been discussed, and those comments will be brought to the council for their consideration. The bylaws were voted on as amended and approved. That's just for the planning commission level. Additionally, there was a presentation. It's been given to the council and now it's been given to the planning commission. There is a builder doing a feasibility study on rezoning a section of 14600 Washington Street from B1 Town Center to R2 residential, excuse me. Their proposal, which has not been applied for yet, is still just a presentation, is to include attached townhome units. The commission was presented with 2 options, one parallel to Washington Street frontage, one perpendicular and when it comes to road layout. They were just looking for general comments from the commission before they apply for any sort of rezoning. What it would look like detail-wise too would be, it would be cutting off the back end of the QBE building. So there's the original school, then there was the addition and the second addition. They would cut off that final addition in the rear of the property. They would move the Cookies and Cream Lewis home to the front of the property, closer to Washington Street. So no demolition COA, just a moving of that property. And then all of the old ball field, private space that's there, that would then be converted into the residential. And so there was discussion on what were the access points going to be from Washington Street, maybe Blight Drive, other connections, what would the screening look like? Just general feedback before they even apply for a rezoning. And so once we get a timeline for that rezoning, which we've calculated,
We're
we're
expecting an application coming in September, is what we're being told.
so hopefully they incorporate the considerations that were, comments that were given to them by council and commission, but that's something that we'll be looking into and reviewing very soon.
Are they still considering doing commercial on that area as well? 'Cause then,
The main QB building itself stays.
The main
Yes.
structure stays. There are some additions that were put in that would be removed back.
Okay.
But all of your main tenants now are still going to be on site, and no new commercial would be added. No new commercial square footage would be added.
Okay.
So let me ask a question on this. I know, Thomas, we probably need to, I'll be at the next planning commission meeting, but there are submissions that are in play right now for possible new tenants in that space. How does that play out? I mean, it's not a conversation I guess we have. That's more of a conversation that the current and potential owners have.
That's a conversation between the current landlord and the tenants, the new potential tenants, and the possible new owners. I don't know the answer to that, but we are just trying to be as transparent as we can to
Mhm.
all parties involved. And we hope that they're doing the same.
That is all from planning commission from that meeting.
Okay. All right, town council update, please.
I'll do town council updates. I don't get to visit you guys often, so I will go through everything and get you kind of a crash course on what we're doing. So, another planning commission item, you do have a planning commission vacancy.
No, nobody coming in. It was just the wind.
Yes, the wind pulls our door
Or
open
somebody
when
from the
it's not
blacksmith's
locked.
office. I don't know.
No. So there's a planning commission vacancy. Council is working to fill that at the next meeting. If you tune into the work session, Thomas and I will be giving a full in-depth report and presentation on all planning and zoning matters that are currently going on, to include what is before the ARB. We are finalizing everything for our Town Park Pavilion RFP scoping document. We had a great conversation on that at our last meeting. So some of the great feedback we've had is we're going to go out with a design scope to, again, get the structure designed to be the same footprint, include the stonework. It is going
That's actually
to
opening
have
now.
the restrooms. Why don't you text Kim and tell her to lock it, and then it should stay
Yeah.
shut. So we're working through that. In conjunction with that, though, what we're realizing and having thoughts on is we need to go ahead and do the engineering phase of it as well. And so we are going to be putting a second RFP together to do the civil engineering. That would include reaffirming or affirming parts of the previous master plan that was done in 2015, doing preliminary site plan engineering, and then providing a final site plan engineering document. So that's a big step. We are moving on that. Additionally, the town hall site plan, we have had this plan approved since 2023. We are trying to work actively on getting price updates for it and get the funding approved and move forward. There will be an opportunity that I'm going to come back to the ARB and the town council and talk to both boards and have a conversation about the front facade of the building. So we had a plan and what was approved, and I'm going to come back and ask for it to be reaffirmed. So that'll come hopefully this fall. I'll be able to bring that to you guys and get that discussed. There is also a possibility we might hold a joint work session with the town council so that we can streamline the conversation. Those are some of the things on our property. Additionally, the council and staff, we continue to hold business roundtables. We've recently launched a fun new video series called Mayor's Message. You might have seen them on Facebook. We'll be releasing one of those every month. So if you have any ideas, let us know. But our goal is to get into all of our businesses. It's an activity kind of video. Mayor gets to learn something, but we're also doing an interview at the same time. We will have history interviews put in there of our different structures. The first one we did is about the museum, so that'll be coming out in several weeks. So very fun series that we started. Just working on building that communication. We recently passed a communication plan, and so it's now working to implement that, utilizing all our sources to include our new mobile apps. So those are some of the bigger ticket items. Council recently hosted the Open House Government Day back in June. That was a really good success for us. We had a great turnout from our audience. We were gearing it towards the K through 12 students, so it was a great attended event. We are going to continue to host that annually now as one of our set events. And lastly, I will just do another plug. We do have that historic walking tour this Friday at 6 p.m. We are starting at the town museum and we are ending at the Cookies and Cream building. For anybody who comes out, they'll have a little coupon to use down there and get something cool and refreshing after our long walks. So it'll be good. If you can't make it, we do have our walking tour guides. It is self-guided, so hopefully we can keep promoting that. Are there any questions, since there's a big storm outside? I'm
Well,
happy to answer
The
any
only question
questions
I have
you
is, do we have a rain date for the walking tour? Should we have a
You know-
storm come through?
I'll have to ask the county. The county helps us facilitate that walk. If they don't have a set rain date, we will pick one and we'll definitely host another one.
I had a question about the comprehensive plan for the
Mm-hmm.
for the park area. I know the original, well, the one I saw, I'm assuming that's probably the 2015,
Yes.
2016 one.
Yes.
Is the new one like significantly pared down? Or is there other structures that would
So-
maybe possibly be on there?
I don't know that answer. And the reason
Okay.
is I know what staff would love to see there. We would
Mm.
love to see the plan built out.
Yeah.
And so where we're at with council is we need to reaffirm what
Mm.
does the community want. And so that's going to be part of that RFP
Okay.
is taking that 2015 master plan, all the documents that we have
Mhm.
and that we spent good money on,
Mhm.
and trying to salvage some of it or all of it. And
Okay.
so that's kind of what we need to hear from our community. So once that consultant is identified and we start the work, we're hoping that our community will come out and tell us in public meetings and activities we do, this is what we want to see. This is what we want to reaffirm as the master plan. So we will come back together and decide that, this is now the master plan and this is the next step.
Ooh, okay.
So, yeah, we definitely need parking. We
Yeah.
need more parking. It gets busy up there.
Yeah.
To kind of piggyback on that, you said I think originally you said the second RFP was about the site and civil plan, kind of figuring out
Yes.
stormwater management. So then
Mhm.
that will be a master plan as well as the civil stormwater, potentially plumbing, because I know at one point there was discussion about having public restrooms there for use and things like that.
So the way we're going to run it is 2 RFPs. So one is going to be the design work of it. So we're going to work with an architectural team to design out the pavilion structure and the restroom facilities on site.
Okay.
So those two structures.
Mhm.
And then we're gonna do the engineering plan to accommodate those two structures on site, the stormwater, the parking, entry, exit, all of the standard things you would find in your site plan. So we're gonna go through reaffirming the master plan and then the development of the final site plan in that second RFP.
So then those will be run in parallel and presumably you'd have both designs before you actually implement and execute. Is that?
That is the
Yeah.
goal. And the ultimate goal is that we have good collaboration once it's identified the two consultants and collectively we're all talking.
Okay.
Cool. Thank you.
Are there any other council questions that anybody's curious about?
All right. Then, can I make a motion to adjourn or do I have to
You
entertain a
can.
motion?
No, you can.
Hmm.
Anybody can.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Motion seconded.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
All right.
All right. Thank you all.
As far as the council is concerned,